Hello everyone, it's me, Rhea Peterson. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to share with you some of my top 3 crock-pot meals. I love to make things ahead. I like to double meals a lot of the time, especially this time of year when it's just crazy busy and also just the perfect time for a crock-pot meal. So I'm going to show you those 3 meals, and in addition to that, I'm going to show you how I make ahead a side that we can have with those meals and dessert, because dinner is never complete without dessert, and I love the convenience of being able to make things, freeze them, and then also have them be able to be made conveniently later. So, very excited and ready to show you. If you're new here, my name is Rhea Peterson. I cover things like cleaning and organization motivation, but I also have a passion for sharing food. So if you're new, don't forget to subscribe. If you haven't already, make sure you are, and let's get started. Okay, well, this is your basic run-of-the-mill beef stew. It's one of my favorites. It's a really great one for the crock pot. With this one, I did it a little different. I made this one a week before I actually needed it. So I'm making this directly into a Ziploc bag, and then I froze it after that. So I started by chopping up all of my vegetables, putting all of that in first, and then sticking my meat on the top, because I knew that once I put it in the crock pot, it was going to go in meat first when I did that, because I know me and I knew it wasn't going to be completely thawed by the time I put it in the Instant Pot. One of the reasons I really love doing things like this is because it's a really easy way to use up like produce or anything that you might have left over, and you know you can make a soup, but maybe you don't need it right away. So I just made a quick crock pot meal, stuck it in my freezer, and I used it a week later. It was actually really convenient. And I also love these because I am me and I don't always let things thaw, or I'll forget that, you know, we have to eat dinner. It's a really easy one to put in the Instant Pot. That is what I love about the Instant Pot, because it's like a crock pot on steroids. It is awesome. So I'm just getting all my vegetables in. I will put in my meat, label it, put it in the freezer, and then I will show you again what it looked like after I cooked it a week later. Okay, so these are really easy. You just need pork chops, and I'm doubling my recipes. So I just got the big Costco pack of pork chops, and then each one will have 1 cream of mushroom and 1 cream of chicken, 1 thing of mushrooms, and then the seasonings are garlic, pepper, and paprika, and then you need beef broth, and I'm just going to use this and water, but it's super easy to throw together. I got a new crock pot. It's very exciting. If you've seen some of my other videos, you know that I got one, but now I'm actually acknowledging it. I've got a little sous chef. Miss Alice wanted to help. Mushrooms are actually a really great one for practice on cutting. She had a lot of fun helping me with that while I smashed my garlic. I love this method, although I did just finally invest in a garlic press, and I'm excited to use it, but I haven't needed to use it yet. Isn't that how it goes? The second you get it, you don't need to use it right away. But anyways, I am getting my meat into the crock pot. Normally, when I do crock pot meals like this, I have enough to double it, and that's often what I will do, because I buy my meat at Costco in bulk a lot of the time, so it's really easy to just make 2, because my family is not so big where I need it all right away. And so I will double what I'm doing, and then I have an extra meal for another week, or I have enough to make for like somebody else that might need a meal. So this is a great way to keep your freezer stocked with stuff that you might need, food, and also like if you just want a week where you don't have to think about what you're going to eat for dinner, then you can remember all of the freezer meals that you have for your crock pot. Okay, well now I am splitting everything. I'm going to make it for dinner, and I'm also going to have one in the freezer. I like this one because you don't really need to worry about making a gravy because the soups are already thick enough to where you don't have to like do any thickener or anything at the end if you don't want to. So I'm just splitting it. Because I'm using the Better Than bouillon, I did add water because it called for beef broth, so I wanted to make sure there was enough liquid. And I'm just splitting all of the soups and seasonings into the 2 different homes that it will be in. And that's it. This one was really quick. You just throw the pork. This is a good dump and go one, just a little bit of chopping, really, really easy and delicious. Here are our ingredients for our pumpkin chili. We've got an onion, tomato sauce, and diced tomatoes, black beans, pumpkin puree. I am doubling it, so I'll need this whole jar. I'll need a couple more cans of these too, but I forgot to get them out. Ground turkey, red bell pepper. I just chop it all up so we can make salads and just have it all ready to go. I just got a vegetable chopper, which I'm very excited about, but it made chopping this really fast. So we've got our bell pepper, and then here's our seasonings, just salt and pepper, and then cumin, cinnamon, and chili powder. But it should be really quick to throw together. The only extra thing you have to do is cook up the meat, but otherwise if your stuff's already pre-chopped, it's pretty fast. Okay, so I'm letting the meat cook up, and I'm going to chop the onion. Instead of pressing record on my camera, I pressed stop recording so you don't get to see the chopper in action, but look at those onions. That took me like 10 seconds. That thing is awesome. I will link it in the description box. I don't know why I waited so long. But now I am adding in all of the bell pepper and everything, and I'm not cooking it all the way. I'm leaving it a little bit raw because it's going to sit in the slow cooker for the day, so I didn't feel the need to spend that much time. With the diced tomatoes, my kids don't like them, and I only had the 1 can, so it kind of worked out. I put half the can in this, and then I put the other half in the bag, and then I'm doing the pumpkin. I put my black beans in there. I'd split everything kind of just down the middle really quick. I just didn't do them in tandem like I did the pork chops. I did the crock pot first, and I'm going to do the bag next. With all 3 of these meals, there were parts that my kids liked, parts that they would have preferred I did not put in there, but all in all, these were wins for me. If my kids will even eat a little bit of it, I call it a win. I have 3 children. They can be very picky sometimes. If you have picky eaters, I feel for you. I'm so sorry. But my kids tried these things and they enjoyed it. I added a little bit of hot sauce to the chili and I wasn't sure how it would go over, but none of them even noticed. I just put a little splash in there, and then my husband and I added a bunch more afterwards. But this came together really quick. Another easy one if you've got the time to cook up the meat. I just threw it in the bag, put it in the freezer, and it's ready for another day. Okay, and now I'm making a bunch of French bread, which I recognize we did not eat as sides for the meals that I showed you. There was another crock-pot meal that I made, and that was what the French bread was going with, and I did not record it properly, so I couldn't share that with you, but I am planning on making it again, so that will be for a future video. But the French bread, is a great one because the recipe that I use produces 2 very good sized loaves, and I will freeze most of it or like share it with a friend. And it's a great one to have. So if you need a side and you don't want to buy rolls or anything, you know that you've got it in your freezer. It freezes really, really well. That being said, I have a bit of a caveat for this one. This bread did not turn out as good for me this time around, which I will talk about a little bit later, but I let it rise too long the second time around. School pickup took way longer than it was supposed to, so I didn't make it home in time to get it, but that's happened to me before and it still turns out good. It's just a little flatter than it would normally be. Well, Miss Alice had to come help again because the mixer was out. She really loves making French bread with me. I used to be really, really intimidated by making bread, and I still am, but I don't let it deter me. It can be fun, especially when it's a success, and either way, it can always be dipped in soup. So that's kind of my motto. I like to have things like this on hand. I don't like to go to the store and buy rolls all the time or French bread, mostly because I will forget until the last minute that, a side would be really nice to go with this, or my kids don't love what I'm making and I need something to fill their bellies. So it's nice when I take the time and have this stuff ready to go on hand, even if I don't need it right away. So I will often do things like this if I have a window and I kind of want to cook. I have said before, I grew up on the Food Network. I love watching cooking shows and baking shows. And so sometimes I get the itch, but I don't really have anything in particular that I need to make. So something like this is fun because you can just kind of throw it in your freezer and have it for later, but you still get to kind of scratch the baking itch. I might be alone in that, but this is something that's fun for me, even if it doesn't go well, because like Alice will still come help me. I'm still gaining a skill, learning a little bit, and it's just, I really love to make French bread, and this recipe is really easy to follow. So I am going to let this sit for an hour and then come back and form it into 2 separate loaves. I just spray the saran wrap with a little bit of avocado spray. I find that if I stick it on the bowl, lift up one of the sides, spray it, and then put it back down, I have better success. One thing that I do is I stick it in my oven. The oven isn't on, but I do leave the light on so there's a little bit of heat to kind of help with the proving process, so that it puffs up a little bit faster. It's just a little bit warmer in there, especially here in Oregon. It can be kind of like cold and humid, and so that just kind of helps warm it up a little bit. But now that it has proved for an hour, I am going to split it into 2 different loaves. This is where everything kind of goes south. I honestly don't think I've ever watched anybody make French bread, so I'm just following the directions, and this is how I am interpreting the directions. If I'm doing this wrong, please let me know in the comments, because I want to know and I want to improve. But I am just pressing it out into, it said about like a 9x13 size, and then rolling it and pinching out any excess air bubbles into like a hot dog style is how I think of it in my head. And then you flip it over, fold the ends down, and then you will stick it back in for another hour to prove. And I do this for both of them. I kind of form it. I try to shorten it a little bit more. I think I press it out a little too far, but it's really easy. The dough isn't sticky because of all of the avocado and olive oil, and it doesn't take very long to press it all out and form it. The first time was tricky, I'm not gonna lie, the very first time I did this, but it's getting easier, and again, it can always be dipped in soup.
So I was picking up Callum. Pickup took way longer and I left like right before I needed to do this anyways. So you can see it just kind of has become a blob, and now I'm putting the slits in it and it's deflating, but it's fine. It'll puff up a little bit more as it bakes, and it still turned out really, really good. It was just a little disappointing, but it is what it is. And at the end of the day, I still had a bunch of bread. One thing that the recipe does have you do is toss a couple of ice cubes in the bottom and then close it right away. It helps it get like that crunchy outside, and it works. It depends on your oven though. I think that this is leaving a little bit of like a mark at the bottom of my oven. I might need to put a piece of foil or a pan down, but they tell you not to do that. So I am just going to keep an eye on my oven.
Okay, so I recognize my bread is very flat. But it'll be fine because it is made to dip into soup and it'll still be delicious. But I'm gonna freeze most of this. So I'm going to cut it in half, wrap it in saran wrap, and then foil, and then put it in a bread bag before I stick it in the freezer. And hopefully it will stay nice and fresh. It's not gonna spend very much time in the freezer because I've made so many soups to eat over the next few weeks. But that's a shame that it ended up so flat, but that's what happens when you gotta go pick up your kids and you decided to make bread. That's my fault. Don't be like me.
Moment of truth, it still has a good crumb, as Paul Hollywood would say, and I'm still pretty pleased with it. It's flat, but still it's bread. So I am taking it, cutting it in half. I'm going to wrap it in saran wrap and then foil. This way it just freezes a little bit better, and hopefully it will avoid getting like freezer burnt. And then I'm just sticking it in the freezer. One thing I would suggest doing, because I may or may not have experienced this very recently, write on the foil that you wrapped it in saran wrap, because then you might accidentally put it in the oven to warm it when it still has the plastic wrap around it. So again, don't be like Rhea and maybe just leave yourself a little note that you need to remember to take the saran wrap off. Now I'm just putting it into bread bags. I love these. I got a huge bit of them from Amazon. That's not the right word, but I got a bunch of them on Amazon for a really affordable price. I will link them. They are really handy to have around. So I just cut up some to have with dinner and to get a better look at it again. I actually don't eat gluten very much at all, but I had to try it, and it still turned out really, really, really good, and my kids loved it. And just so you know, it goes very well with cabbage soup. But now, dessert. I have made these pumpkin cookies a number of times. I did make them with my fall decorate. My kids love pumpkin cookies. They are a staple in our house this time of year. When I started dating my husband, his mother would have them. The first time I ever had them was at her house. I love making these cookies. But one thing about the recipe, the one that I'm doing was a chocolate chip one, but I wanted to do it with white chips as well. So I am making a bunch of cookies and I'm going to split the batter. I'm going to do one that's chocolate chip, one that's white chocolate chip, and I'm also going to mess with the seasonings a little bit. I'm only going to bake enough for us to have for the next few nights for like dessert, and then I'm going to freeze the rest of them so that we can have them another week. So the chocolate chip one just calls for cinnamon, and then I opted to do pumpkin pie spice with the white chip, and I did add a little bit extra cinnamon in there. So I just took the full batch's cinnamon amount, and I split it in half as well, and it was really, really easy to do. And now I am just getting all of the chips out, and I did a mix of dark chocolate and semi-sweet with the chocolate chip ones, and then just straight white chips with the other ones. So I am going to just flash freeze the rest of them. So I have a pan with parchment paper. I'm going to scoop out my cookies. I love this cookie scoop. It's really, really handy. I used to do the 2 spoons method, but this has been a game changer. But I am just scooping everything out, and then I'm going to stick it in the freezer for an hour so that everything can, freeze and solidify, so that I can put them in a bag and they won't stick together. All right, well, our cookies are baked. I'm going to get them in their jar, and we're going to get our flash frozen cookies out and packed. With the frozen ones, I typically just take them out of the bag and put them on the pan while the oven is preheating so that they can thaw a little bit before I put them in. And they always turn out really, really good. This is a great method for making ahead if you've got a lot of cookie dough, but you don't need a lot, or you don't necessarily want to have a bunch of ready-to-eat cookies. This one is great. But that is everything that I have for you. I hope that this video gave you some fall crock-pot ideas, some ideas for making things ahead of time. I really love having these things in my freezer, especially when I reach the meal planning burnout. I tend to hit a wall at least once a month where I'm just done and I don't really want to think anymore. And it's really nice when I take advantage of these moments of motivation to make sure that my freezer is stocked and that we are ready for my moments when I'm not motivated. But thank you so much for being here. I really, really appreciate it. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.